Are you tired of feeling tired? Are you struggling with vitality? Or does your body just not feel great? Join today's hosts Monique Bradley and registered naturopath Lynette Hill to talk about your health. It's Health Bites, bite-sized pieces of health and wellness information so you can own your health. No, my hearty mind, welcome to the YourFixTV studio. I'm Monique Bradley and tonight's topic is a biggie. We are talking about Diabetes Action Month, and with more than 250,000 people here in New Zealand affected by either type 1, type 2 or gestational diabetes, it's a huge topic, and as always, we welcome your questions and love you being part of the show. Now, to answer your questions, we have two amazing people here in the studio. First of all, my regular weekly co-host from My Remedy, naturopath and clinic manager there. This is Lynette Hill. Kia ora, Lynette. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Monique.
And tonight we have a very special guest. This is the CEO of Diabetes New Zealand. This is Steve Crew. Kia ora, Steve.
Kia ora, Monique.
Welcome to the studio. Nice to have you here. How are you feeling, all right?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, cool. Well, we are going to delve straight into it. And remember, too, this is a live stream, so if you do have any questions at all, feel free to ask the experts, because that's what this show is all about. First of all, good evening to Debbie Curtis. Lovely to have you on the stream, as always. So, first of all, one of the big questions that came out of last week's show is, Steve, how do people catch diabetes?
Well, they don't actually catch diabetes.
That's true. That's so true.
There's many different types of diabetes, and of course we talk about the main ones: type 1, type 2 and gestational diabetes.
Yep, excellent.
So type 1, about 20,000 people, about 10% of all the people living with diabetes.
Right.
It's an autoimmune disease. They don't catch it. It just happens. We don't know how to prevent it, and there's no cure. It predominantly happens when they're youngsters, when they're children.
Right. So that's different from type 2?
Type 2 tends to be a slightly older generation. However, most people between 25 and 44 now, that is the age group where it's starting to happen. It tends to be a lifestyle issue. It's a family history, genetics, and also an age as we get older. It's a metabolic condition where the pancreas doesn't produce as much insulin as it used to.
Right.
But there's some predispositions, like we're more sedentary. We don't exercise as much.
Yeah, we spend more time on the computer, right?
We don't eat as well, and we don't do as much as we used to. So we're becoming more predisposed to type 2 diabetes. Right,
and we are going to go into the signs and the symptoms, the risks, and all the information you need to know, and also how you can help your own health tonight. So do stick around, and if you've got friends or whānau who you think may have some challenges with their health, perhaps they are already pre-diabetic, please tag them into tonight's stream, and remember to share the show, because we are very keen to spread awareness of what's happening with our health and help more people. More love, more healing. That's what we like to say. Now, Lynette, I'm going to shoot a question your way. Let's talk about this. So why do you think that the diabetes numbers are rising here in New Zealand?
Well, very much as you say, our diet and our lifestyle are changing. So we're seeing a lot more children being driven to school. We're needing to drive everywhere. So exercise is dropping off, and unless you're prepared to actually have some formal exercise, so you do ballet or you go to the gym or you do something. Basically, people are sitting behind, a keyboard. We were discussing before the basics. So people aren't out in the garden and moving. There's less people with animals. There's more fear around sending the kids off on their bikes, or actually as an adult going on the road. I don't know if you do it, but I wouldn't go near the roads. So exercise as movement is really drifting backwards, and fast foods are a big part of most people's life. Very few people take a cut lunch. And then what we do eat is it's easy. Where's a sandwich or something, sushi, which is loaded with those good simple sugars, and that the body just goes, I'll just turn that into fat. And everything's changing. And people are also, the people I see, a lot of them tend to be waiting for disease rather than living to be healthy.
Right. Okay, so it is a bit of an epidemic. It is, what I'm hearing from that is lots of lifestyle choices. How does lifestyle affect type 1 diabetes? And we are going to go more into this, but I'd like, just as we open up tonight's show and invite people to the stream, how does those lifestyle choices affect type 1?
I think some of their choices are they still have to eat well. They have to still exercise well. But we need to make sure that we do know the difference between the two.
Right.
Never shall the twain meet.
They are quite different. Yes.
They are quite different. So we need to acknowledge that they're different, and we need to acknowledge within the diabetes community, but also the wider community, they are quite different disease states.
Yes.
So, but it's still very healthy for a type 1 person to be able to manage through exercise, and also manage through eating well and exercising well still.
And if you do want to know more about type 1, for example, we do have Andrew Good coming onto the show next week, and he lives with type 1 diabetes. I believe he's just run a marathon. I believe he was doing that for diabetes awareness as well. So you'll actually get to chat with somebody who is going through that, and he's got new technology on board. I believe the pump he's using. So you'll find more out about that. Now, one of the things we didn't touch on is, as we open up tonight's show, is of course gestational diabetes. You know, that's affecting more people. Now, you gave us some stats earlier before the show about how many people are actually affected by gestational diabetes.
It's about 1 in 12 women in New Zealand will have gestational diabetes.
Wow.
But the scary part of that is once baby's born, it is finished. But about 50% of those women in the next 10 to 15 years will go on to develop type 2 diabetes.
Why is it? Is that just because they're predisposed to it, or does it come back again to lifestyle?
No, not necessarily. It's just one of those things that happen. I think there's a lot of investigation for the reasons why. But when mum is pregnant, she is requiring a lot more insulin, and also from the hormones within her body and the changes. But for some reason, up to 50% of those women will develop type 2 diabetes.
That is really interesting. Debbie Curtis has just said, good evening, everybody. Really looking forward to tonight's show. Thank you so much, Debbie. Great to have you on the stream. And remember, tag people and share tonight's show because it is Diabetes Action Month. Is that correct?
It is.
Yep. So this is about spreading the word and getting more people involved. It is fantastic timing. And remember too, if you do have any questions at all, share them in the stream. We are happy to answer any questions as far as we can with what's going on. But first of all, as always in our show, we do have to share with you a disclaimer just to let you know that we're not here to diagnose disease. We are here to show you treatment options and share some insights into some options of what might work for you, options that other people may have tried out in their own life, and connect you directly with the experts. So if you do have any medical concerns, please consult your healthcare professional because they are there to diagnose you. They have to see you in real life to be able to help you find your way back to optimal health. Right, so if you have just joined the stream, welcome to the YourFixTV studio. I am here in the studio tonight with Lynette Hill from My Remedy, who is a clinical registered naturopath and clinical director of My Remedy, and Steve Crew. Now, he's the CEO of Diabetes New Zealand. So if you've got any questions about diabetes, honestly, send them through. That's what tonight's show is about. Right, we're delving into the big stuff now. We're going to talk about the difference. Now, I know with Diabetes New Zealand, that's this month's big focus topic. It's about knowing that difference between diabetes and type 1 and type 2 in particular. So we've got a screen graphic to show you which actually shares a little bit about that comparison or that difference between type 1 and type 2. We're going to bring that up for you right now. Now, from a science point of view, Lynette, because this is really your background, can you talk us through what this graphic really explains to us here on the screen?
Well, this graphic is quite a simple explanation. It shows the type 1 diabetes. You can see in the blood vessel, there is glucose and no insulin. And then in type 2 diabetes, there still is some insulin. So there's still the ability to have a limited response, but there's a lot of resistance. So it just shows you quite clearly. One is it's never there. It wasn't there, it's not there, and it's never going to be there. The other one is more preventable, but once you get to type 2, you are needing medication, you're needing insulin.
Yes. Gotcha. Excellent. Now, I've just noticed there's some people on Periscope tonight who I just unfortunately missed a question. So if you want to send your question back through, I have my phone here with the screen. I'm ready to receive your questions. Please send them through tonight. So there is quite a vast difference between type 1 and type 2. So Steve, my understanding is type 1 is an autoimmune disease. Can you talk us through what happens?
we don't actually really know. An autoimmune disease, the body all of a sudden does not produce insulin.
Right.
And over a very short period of time, usually it's a child, they will become unwell.
Right.
And they're usually taken invariably to the hospital, sometimes to the general practice. And it's through that sometimes a long, prolonged phase of a diagnosis that then we understand. Because once these children or an adult is diagnosed as type 1, for the rest of their life, they're injecting themselves up to 5-6 times a day. They're measuring their blood sugars many times a day. This is a constant pattern for the rest of their life. At the moment, there is no cure, even on the horizon. We've talked about a lot of things, artificial pancreas, a lot of things. But at the moment, so that's why it's very, very dear to Diabetes New Zealand that we actually show the difference, but also give the kudos to these people living with type 1. It is a tough gig out there, and we need to acknowledge it. And that was why this Diabetes Action Month we decided to know the difference.
Right. I think that's incredible. That's incredible right there. Sorry, Lynette?
It is such a hard thing, and because it usually presents itself with those little children, you've just got to think of the extra pressure on the family. You've got kids going to parties, and they just can't have lemonade. They just can't do that at the disco. And it's quite controllable as when you're a toddler. But as those children start stamping their foot and saying, I'm getting really sick of this and I'm going to do this, it's quite a stress. And to get that education as your foundation is doing to those very young children, to the children, not to the mum and dad, but to the children, to say that you need to take care of yourself for these reasons, because children don't care about when they're 50. They don't even know what 50 is. But for them to learn how to look after themselves and how important it is, and that it is poison, for them to have those sugary treats.
Yes, absolutely
it's really,
true.
really tough.
Interesting comment from Abby Leaf, who just said, hey Fab people, thank you for tonight's show. I love that, and I love the fact that we can use this as a platform to get this information out there. So coming back to type 1, we're talking about education. So particularly for children, what sort of education is available? Because is it my imagination, or is the diabetes numbers on the uprise?
Across the board, they are about at 7% a year.
Wow.
Predominantly that's in the type 2 space, but we have noticed that there is becoming more and more of an increase in type 1, maybe not to the same extent. We don't particularly have good numbers on that, but we do believe that it is slightly increasing.
Wow.
It's very difficult to understand when it's an autoimmune. We don't know the prevention cure,
of course.
but we do believe that it's going there. So part of the educational part that we support is in hospital when they're first diagnosed, the endocrinologist, the awesome diabetes nurse specialist, and the whole team work with the family. But it's massively overwhelming. Now, some of these people think their world's coming down.
Yes, and the
child's
parents.
sick. But also what Diabetes New Zealand wants to do is working with one of our partners beyond type 1 is to support children when they get home.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I didn't know that.
Because life changes. They have to make total life changes. And it's really hard. A friend of mine, her daughter had diabetes. She was type 1 diabetes. She was diagnosed really young. And we would babysit her. And it was such a palaver, and we were having to put little injections into her bottom. And that was a really hard thing for me to do to a child. And we were having to monitor things, and you might be a little bit sneaky sometimes, and I'd be having to, I'd go to bed at night worried the one night I had to look after her that everything was under control.
Wow.
And from the moment she woke up, there were the injections, and it's a big deal.
So how do you educate a child? Is it the role of the diabetes nurse in that moment?
I think the health professionals do a fantastic job of doing that, but it's also giving the support to the family. The extended family. They're the ones that really do 99% of the work. Once they leave, the hospital, that's it. The family look after them.
Wow.
But it's also school. How do you ensure that teachers and students are fully au fait with what they're living with, but also have the sympathetic nature to it? How do we encourage young children that they feel safe in a safe environment, that they can inject themselves in front of their friends?
Of course.
There's a lot
and
of
not
things,
feel like a freak.
So there's a lot of things
honest,
that we've got to work with them, and there's a lot of barriers, particularly what we want to do as Diabetes New Zealand, is to break down some of those myths, but also make sure the schools are supportive of these kids. In saying that, there's a lot of people that are diagnosed in their teens and their 20s, and recently I met a man that was diagnosed, he was 57.
Wow, that's just incredible.
But most of them are in children.
Yes, I shared this post into Lynette and I have been members of a women's business network here in New Zealand called the Venus Network, and I shared the post out about tonight's stream saying I've had personal connection to diabetes. My father suffered with type 2. Please share this out. And in fact, the lady, one of the ladies commented that because of the work Diabetes New Zealand has done to spread awareness, she noticed she had the symptoms, went and got tested and discovered she had type 1. So congratulations to you guys for doing it's life-changing work. And you know, this is a serious condition, type 1 and type 2. These are life changes. So we are going to talk into the symptoms tonight so that you have an idea perhaps of things that might be going on in your life or in the lives of your friends or your family. You need to help each other. In fact, we've got the symptoms right there. In fact, Lynette, you know, you're seeing a lot of these symptoms in your clinic. Do you want to just talk into those first of all?
Yeah, there's that trio that come in and they're saying they've got their increased appetite, they're eating and they're just getting no energy from it. They're thirsty all the time, and this is dire thirst. They're very, very thirsty, and they drink 3 or 4 litres and they're still thirsty. And of course there's a lot of urine coming out the other end.
Of course.
But it's even more than they're drinking, and it has a smell about it. There's a sweetness to it. There's something going on. Fatigue, you're getting no energy. You're not converting your sugars into energy, so you're actually becoming toxic. So there's a real fatigue. Occasionally we're getting weight loss, and if you have already gone into diabetes, there might just be those wounds that are not healing. There's just that underwhelming response for wound healing.
Right. So are those signs and symptoms the same for both type 1 and type 2?
I think the first 3 definitely are. They're the excessive thirst, the weight loss, and the wanting to urinate all the time. Urination all the time. I think those tend to be the start. Yeah, that's enough.
Go to your doctor.
And most people don't get that for any other reason. And if that's happening, you need to go see your health professional and have that discussion.
Yes, of course. I just want to thank all the people who have been sending through hearts through Periscope. It's great to see that you guys are getting the message, and thank you for being so supportive of tonight's stream. We're here to spread awareness and education, so feel free to share the stream tonight as well. It's great to have you guys on board. Okay, so let's talk about type 2, because that's not an autoimmune disease, am I right?
It's a metabolic.
A metabolic disease. Now, you touched on that, in fact, last week. So we've got the screen details there. Diabetes type 2. So, Lynette, would you like to talk into this very quickly?
Okay, so we've actually got some measurables here once we get to type 2. So there are high blood sugars. So that means that there's not enough insulin to break those sugars down, and they're going up, so they're measurable, usually with a blood glucose test. There is insulin resistance. That's all part of the same thing. That's why there are high blood sugars. And there's just, well, it's all the same thing, really. Insulin is not being uptaken into the cells and converted into energy. So we see a lot of people who are just before this stage. Once they're at type 2, they are definitely here, but we will see people at type 2 where there still is some insulin production, but they're starting to go into some of those symptoms, and it's quite hard to pick. If I have anyone coming in with that trio, it's go and have a simple test done. Let's go and find out where you're at, because knowledge is power. And if you're already into type 2, we need you to stop poisoning yourself today.
Right.
And either get on, well, actually, all they can do is get on medication. But we still need to go. Don't just carry on poking the poison in.
Yeah.
You know,
and stop Googling. Stop asking Dr. Google, right?
Absolutely. Go and find someone, a medical professional, a naturopath, or someone who really knows something, and get some decent advice. And get on your webpage.
Yeah, in fact, we've got that website that will show you guys as well. Diabetes.org. We'll just bring that up to show you right now. You can go onto the website. Now, Steve, what can people find when it comes to, say, the signs and symptoms, if they're looking out for maybe some tools to help them if they think they might have symptoms of diabetes? What's on that website?
I think that we got the main 3.
Yep.
You've got the trifecta, want of a better word. And then we've got the sub ones, you know, ongoing infections. We've got the frequent infections. We've just got some other things, often hungry, unexplained weight loss. There's just, people just don't seem to be themselves.
They're not.
But the other thing they can look at is that when we want to encourage them, first of all, there's 1 in 4 New Zealanders with pre-diabetes.
Wow.
So that's huge. And we got 40 people a week being diagnosed.
Wow, that is a huge number. 1 in 4. That's someone in this room.
Yeah.
And so we want a lot of people to know their risk. So there's a couple of things they can't change. They can't change their age.
Yes.
They can't change their ethnic background, and they can't change their family history. But everything else, they can.
Yes.
Stop smoking. Like I said, get off their backsides and go for a walk. Try to eat as well as they can. Unfortunately, in New Zealand, it's not as easy as it's said. We do have deprivation, we do have poverty in this country.
Yes.
Not everyone can afford to eat well, but we've got to encourage them to eat as well as they can. Because the problem in New Zealand is we're not health literate either. It's very hard to read a label. It's very hard to understand what people are trying to tell us we should eat.
And with naturopathy, one of the things you've been really trying to educate people about is let food be thy medicine. Absolutely. And that's really part of that journey is, you are what you eat. Eat processed food, what do you expect to be, It is about choices where you can, what fits with your budget and, of course, your lifestyle.
And we're going to have Amy coming on next week, who is a naturopath also and a nutritionist. And she's going to show us some really simple things that are nutritious and totally appropriate for actually everybody, not just someone with pre-diabetes, but anyone who doesn't want to go down that road. And you can do it on a budget.
Yes, you can.
Water is free. And that's one of the best things we can do. And fruit and veggies, we can go to the markets. There are things we can do, but boy, we actually have to use our brain and maybe get on our bike and ride down to the markets. And,
so true, absolutely.
Do something.
Now, one of the comments that's just come through the South Pacific College of Natural Medicine Facebook page from Karen Noble: fatigue and depression can be part of the symptoms as well and need to be recognised as ongoing high blood sugar carries on. Thoughts about that, Steve?
Oh, we definitely know that people living with diabetes have a higher incidence of depression and mental health issues. So we totally acknowledge that as well.
Yeah, and your thoughts around that, Lynette?
Well, again, anytime you're getting energy taken away and you're feeling rubbish about yourself and it's chronic, so you're waking up and you're going to bed with it, it's got to have an impact. And we know that the impact of stress just on fatigue and health and lack of sleep. So it's always, to me, it's never just, diabetes is down here all by itself. It's always wrapped and woven into the whole person.
Wow, that's really interesting. And do keep, thanks Karen for your comment there, and do keep your comments coming through. Now, one of the things on the diabetes.org website is a thing, I noticed a really cool screen graphic. It's called the Diabetes Detective. And I thought this was great. Do head to their website, by the way, because this gives you, it's a really great, simple screen graphic that gives you an idea about things you should be looking out for. It's about knowing that difference, because it's not just your life that, whether you've got diabetes or someone else in your life might have diabetes. It's not just a single person's kind of issue. It affects lives, it affects communities. For me, growing up with a father who had type 2, he went blind overnight. All of a sudden we had no income and our family were thrown into poverty. That's the reality of that living in New Zealand. I'm not the only one who's experienced this, and we need to do something about this now, which is why we've got tonight's topic happening and tonight's discussion. So do be part of that discussion. And just before we head into a quick break, we're talking about some natural options as well. So I know type 1, you've got to be on insulin, is that right?
There's no
insulin and a good lifestyle. However, there's some natural medicine options that can support type 1 as well.
Can support only. So we're looking at other factors around digestion. So if you're not breaking your fats down and other things, we'd look at digestion. If that flora, if that gut's unhealthy, everything's a problem from that point. So we're looking at the whole health of the person. We're looking at the gut, the liver, the stress levels, the relational difficulties. So naturopathically, we always work in that way. There is no medicine we can give. Certainly, we have seen people with uncontrolled type 1 diabetes, and we can work maybe with some specific herbs to try and balance out the glucose levels.
Excellent.
But you have to be on your medication. There is no option.
Right.
We won't actually work with somebody who refuses medication for any medical condition.
Wow, that's really interesting to know. And of course, natural medicine can support type 2 as well. And of course, those lifestyle changes. So just to let you know, if you want to know more about My Remedy and natural medicine, how it could support you in your health, I've got a quick video to share with you just to give you a little insight into what the clinic does. So let's take a look at that right now. Have you ever considered that symptoms are often the outward sign of something deeper and can just be the body's way of saying, help me? The great news is that even small changes from the inside out can affect your whole health outcome. So, are you ready to make positive changes? The team at My Remedy work with you to find solutions for optimal health and can help you with many health challenges. Their team of qualified and registered naturopaths are there to help with any health condition: gut health, skin conditions, adrenal fatigue and immune health, cardiovascular and men's health, and nutritional health. At My Remedy, they also have a registered homeopath and hypnotherapist who are there to help with the deepest challenges to your health, your beliefs, your fears, your habits and behaviours. So if you're ready to create better health for you and your family, try a different approach. Visit myremedy.co.nz or give them a call on 09486 2175. My Remedy. It's your remedy. Well, welcome back to the YourFixTV studio. If you've just joined the stream, I'm Monique Bradley here at the YourFix studio. I've got with me tonight the clinical director of My Remedy in Milford. This is Lynette Hill. Hello. And I also have the CEO of Diabetes New Zealand. Kia ora to you, Steve Crew.
Kia ora.
How are you doing?
Good.
Feeling good?
Very good.
Awesome. Well, it is a big night. Our focus topic tonight is really talking about knowing the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes, a condition that's affecting more than 250,000 people here in New Zealand. And one of the big topics that's really come through tonight is about educating children. So we've got a couple of comments that have come through. Kate over on the My Remedy page said, "My nephew was diagnosed at the age of 4 years with type 1. Tough for everyone. Great to hear this good sense management." That's what we like to hear. And also Debbie Curtis just sent in a comment. "I was looking after a little boy in kindergarten. He was aged between 3 to 4 years, and I felt so sad for the little man as the sugar levels can hit so fast. And when they're playing, it's really hard. And the little boy was painting outside, really happy. Then boom, fatigue, listless, and he fought us every step of the way, pricking his finger, then his injections." Which the kindy teachers gave him, so as they were qualified to do so. And she's just written underneath, "a little sweetheart." Oh, amazing. So you know, I've noticed you brought in a toy with you tonight, and I'm assuming this will really fit into that part of the conversation. How do you actually educate a young child when they are in that situation?
So first of all, when a child is newly diagnosed, the health professionals spend a lot of time, but it's massively overwhelming for the family. A lot of information. And so what we've done in the first instance is we've put out a lot of posters to the 1,100 odd general practice in New Zealand showing the signs and symptoms of type 1 particularly. And we want people to challenge their general practice.
Good, say, we do too.
Get out there and look at this. But secondly, one of our partners is Beyond Type 1, and if you've not seen that, go onto their website. This is Jerry.
So cute.
Jerry the bear. And Jerry's just been released in the United States probably about a year or so ago.
Right.
And what Jerry does, Jerry works with these little patches on an Apple or Android phone. So you have your app. And this Jerry basically tells up to about 20 odd stories of how to manage your type 1 diabetes.
That's cool.
And we're now giving Jerry away to every newly diagnosed child in the last 6 months between 4 years of age and 10, which is this is recommended for.
Oh, wow. I reckon there'd be a lot of adults who would want this as well. Because
I know a few adults that have them.
Wow, what a great educational tool.
So we believe this is really, really great. And it's an educational tool once they've left all the health professionals and all that big clinical support. But what happens when you get home? What happens for the child that needs to understand the importance of eating well, injections, measuring blood sugar?
So it's kind of a soft sell for the child to get into the habit.
It's on our website now. We're pretty certain within about 4 months we'll probably be having to give these away to every child that's under 16 years of age, regardless when they've been diagnosed.
Wow.
We just need to understand how much is going to go out.
That's just incredible. So, you know, things like this are wonderful for education. What about educating adults? And I'm going to bring that back to you, actually, Lynette. Wearable technology, because my understanding is that whole idea is growing. And I mean, one of the pieces you're testing is the Hilo. I know you haven't got yours on tonight.
I haven't.
But they're doing developments, and I'd love to know more about this from you too, Steve. Wearable technology to be able to monitor your sugar levels. Can you just talk into that first of all, Lynette?
Sure. Well, the Hilo is still under development, and it's actually under clinical trials at the moment, which is fabulous, and something I've just been working in the background with, and it's giving us real-time information on, at the moment, you know, blood pressure and all, you know, all
stress
of the
and anxiety,
all the normal stuff. But the blood glucose is going to be really, really important. And the way I'm using Hilo in practice is to take that information. We get the permission from our patients, and we get that information sent right back so we can real-time monitor. And there are alarms that go out to the parents that say, hey, it's gone low. Is there somebody looking after your child? And you're going to have very similar technology. So there are things being developed which just give us more tools, and also give the child an awareness. Heck, I've gone really low. I need to go and do something, without constantly pricking their finger. So it's so exciting what's coming out, which is making life easier. You know, technology which means that children can, you know, have actually something pretty cool and monitor themselves, and parents can have that little bit of a surety if their child's at the disco. They can see what's going on with those blood sugars.
Wow, that's incredible. So Steve, what about, you know, on the forefront of, you know, diabetes technology, what is it you're seeing coming into play for people like that?
It's very similar. Diabetes New Zealand has a relationship with Fitbit, and Fitbit have just developed their latest tool that actually senses blood sugar, and it can send it to
a practitioner.
No, it can actually send it to their own pump that can dictate insulin.
That's amazing.
One of the biggest things that Diabetes New Zealand want to advocate, and we will be very seriously to the minister, the ministry, and to Pharmac, is that every type 1 in New Zealand should be afforded a continuous glucose meter. They have it in Australia, they have it in most parts of the world,
life-saving.
and it just essentially sits on their arm, and some of them, and then it's just a go over like a wand, and it'll do the reading for them. It doesn't necessarily stop all the finger pricking. So and currently at the moment we have the Freestyle Libre, we have Dexcom, and we have Medtronica in the country.
Yes.
But we want those freely available.
I agree.
Every person.
I support it.
Yeah.
I'll advocate for it too.
Absolutely.
It's a life changer, you know, giving people back their lives just with some simple tools.
It just helps, particularly the person living with diabetes and their families. It's not going to change what they've got, but it will make things a little bit more easy to read and understand.
It's going to keep more control as well.
Totally
and
agree.
Also the thing that I'm excited about, and I'm really using my technology for pre-diabetes, is actually learn from what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, go and eat that bread and see what happens, you know, and it gives them that real-time data to say, particularly I'm talking more pre-diabetes, because that's really where my ability to make change is, you know, you are actually doing this. This is what happens when you do this. Okay, now let's have a day where you don't do that, and let's see what happens. So, you know, technology is going to be so important.
I totally agree. And even just coming back to the bear comment from Ross Twilton has come through.
Cute.
Hi, my son Sam was diagnosed at the end of last year with type 1. I'm going to look into Jerry the bear. I think this could really help him. Also, he has the Libre, is it? And it has made a huge difference to him.
Good.
The Freestyle Libre, it's a fantastic. Unfortunately, in New Zealand, you have to pay for it.
Right.
So, and those costs aren't insignificant. So what we're going to be doing is asking, why should it not be
I agree.
funded?
Absolutely.
I agree. And I do know for a fact there are many politicians that sneakily watch our shows. So shout out to the government. You guys are coming for you to make,
And we
make
certainly
a
know
difference.
there's several politicians that are type 1.
Yeah, okay.
So really going for them.
Right, we certainly are. Right, remember, do keep sending your questions through, all your comments. We love you being part of this conversation. And a big shout out again to everybody sending us hearts and love through a Periscope tonight. Great to have you guys on board. Let's talk risk. What is the danger of people who don't know they have diabetes, or, you know, they're getting some of these symptoms and brushing them off because everybody gets thirsty, don't they? What is that risk of uncontrolled type 1 or type 2? Do you want to start with that one, Lynette?
No, I'm actually passing it over to you. You were amazing when you were telling me about it.
Okay, Steve, hit us with what you know.
If you're getting to those trifecta of symptoms, it's too late. So we know 1 in 4 New Zealanders have pre-diabetes, and the biggest growth is between 25 and 44 years of age. So you need to know your risk. So online is a simple tool There's about 9 simple little questions, and it tells you what your status is, but it also then tells you what you can do and what you can't do.
So that's on the diabetes website. We'll just bring that screen graphic up just for those of you who have just joined the stream.
And people need to know their risk in the first instance.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are shy about understanding that risk. But if you don't, you potentially could progress well and truly down to type 2.
Absolutely.
But if you know your risk and deal to it, you may delay the onset, or certainly you're not going to get there so quick.
Right. Very
and so
interesting.
it's so important that we do it, because it all just sounds like these words, oh, you've got diabetes. What is diabetes? What does that mean? You know, there are serious medical risks downstream. You know, there is blindness. You know, there are kidney disease. There is amputation. And I know that's horrible to say, but that's the reality of uncontrolled diabetes, whether it be type 1 or type 2.
Right.
So if there is knowing your risk is about knowing where you're at in the scheme of things, but actually knowing the long-term, you know, the cardiovascular risk, the renal risk, and all of those other things. I think it's really important that people know, because I was saying last week, you know, we have pictures on cigarette packets that say, if you're going to smoke, you're going to look like this. And people go, horrors, that's awful, let's not smoke. Well, sugar has the same potential. This is the nicotine for the diabetic, is the sugar. So let's, you know, I think the risk is what that can do to us, and we do need to know that.
And I think that's what they're looking at bringing into government, is with the taxes on sugar, or, you know, the having to label things more clearly to show people the risks, that if you ingest too much of this, you are putting your health at risk. Is that going to make a difference, Steve?
Oh, I think so. I mean, certainly from Diabetes New Zealand perspective, it's sugar tax on sugary beverages and processed sugars.
Yes.
It's going to be very hard to put a sugar tax across everything, but let's aim for the things that don't need to be in there.
They don't need. They were birthday treats.
And you know, because there's so many food products. There's, you know, but it's also, rather than taking that nanny state approach, let's also get people to understand what's in the label. And then take and ask the food manufacturers to make a label that's quite simple. I mean, Diabetes New Zealand is looking very much in developing next year what we call a Diabetes New Zealand choice, meaning we've looked at it from a dietetic perspective. We looked at the values of our organisation. We believe, by the by, this is not a bad product, but we want still people to understand how to read it, because we can put one product there and here. You've got to understand it.
And there's a lot of products that are being sold masked as under that idea of it's a health food, and then you read the ingredients on the back, and there's, you know, 30 grams of sugar in one small muesli bar. You know, that education needs to be out there,
which make it a health food.
So we need to get better understanding of our health literacy.
Now, Steve Broomhead over on the My Remedy page has just said, I've been 22 years and still struggle. Got the Libre but can't afford it. Libre made a massive difference but unaffordable. Is that why you're jumping into the advocacy roles?
Totally agree. I think approximately it's about $200 every 2 weeks or something.
Oh,
and that's what I believe so. And some of them, the next tranche up can be up to $5,000-$10,000 a year.
Wow.
So we need to be able to ensure that we advocate very strongly for these, because it does make a difference, not from just a simple point of view, but it actually regulates their blood sugars. And so when they have their body in a far more regulated state, they're far more happy, they're functional, and they don't have the highs and lows as much as they do.
So it's actually going to cost our health system a lot less to not have these people ending up in hospital with surgeries that they didn't need, on dialysis, and having all these things. So, you know, it's a medical device.
Well, put it this way, we now actually have it in the country. Before, people were having to import it from Australia and the UK.
Right.
So now there's a company in New Zealand that actually has it, and I dare say that Andrew will talk about that more the next time. But also we want people to have a choice. You know, not just the same. So that's our big advocacy tool, particularly for on behalf of type 1 people. Bring in continuous glucose meters, that they have a choice of which type they're there, and it will make a difference.
So there you go, Steve. I hope that's answered your question. There are people out there fighting for you. So keep asking these questions and keep being part of this discussion, because the only way that we can make things happen is by letting people know that there is such a huge need for this, because this really is life-changing. So thank you. Oh, Ross Twilton just said $86 for a sensor, which lasts 14 days, plus $86 for the scanner, which I think lasts up to 3 years. So yeah, lots of ongoing cost. Come on, New Zealand government, you've got to do something. Jacinda, you're about the people, so it's time to do something for the people living with diabetes, just putting it out there. So before we hit to our next short video, a quick question for the both of you. Type 1 and Type 2, making you feel nervous.
Yeah, you always do this.
Do you see in the future, will this be preventable, Steve?
Type 1, who knows? You know, they keep saying every 10 years, every 10 years. I don't know when it's going to happen. Type 2, we've got a huge issue in the world. In another 15 years, there's going to be close to 600 million people living with diabetes.
No.
And so it's a worldwide massive epidemic. It's the third largest country in the world after China and India. The land of diabetes.
Wow.
So we've got to learn to address it because it's costing our country about $1.4 billion a year, and that's one thing. But it's socially, you know, amputations, 8 lower leg amputations a week, you know, blindness. So people socially, their families, it's affecting everyone, not just the person, but their families. So we've got to be able to address that issue. But we also have to get to the hard part, you know. It's not necessarily a fat, lazy disease. You're predisposed to it. In New Zealand, our Indian communities and Chinese, Asian communities are the highest prevalence, followed by Pacifica and Māori. So we've got to get and do something about this. We've got to make people aware. We've got to give them the tools to be able to respond to this issue.
So I so agree there. Lynette, what are your thoughts? Do you think or do you hope this will be preventable in the future? And what role can natural medicine play in that?
Yeah, I think by taking it seriously as a, you know, this is likely to happen to a high percentage of us as an adult. So obviously with type 1, it's an autoimmune condition. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, which sounds very pessimistic, but that's just how it is. So we need to shelve that for this conversation. But for what I think we need to do is prevent people becoming pre-diabetic. And the way to do that is to focus on labels and our diet and our lifestyle and our exercise and our learning, and actually understand what it is to be well and to live well. So not introducing, you know, white bread and sugars as treats. You know, introduce broccoli as a treat. Good luck.
Wow.
But no, just start to go, we need to go back to the land and time where type 2 diabetes was not really, really high. What were they eating? What were they doing? They were eating very simple foods. They weren't eating too much. They were eating fresh. They were eating, you know,
seasonal.
And as they were hungry, they were moving a whole lot. I don't know if they were drinking water. I dream that people will drink more water. But I do think that we can really prevent pre-diabetes to a large degree if we do it through diet and lifestyle.
Well, sadly, the rate of people with diabetes is rising here in New Zealand, which is one of the reasons why we're doing tonight's show. On the flip side of that, there has been a call for more people to sign up to become natural medicine practitioners, which is a great fit for tonight's show because our chief sponsor of this show is the South Pacific College of Natural Medicine. Now, they have practitioners in training who do incredible work in the community to help people who are really challenged with pre-diabetes or suffering the effects and symptoms of that, and work alongside the recommendations of their healthcare professionals to find a treatment plan or even remove some of the horrible side effects of what they might be going through and give them a way back to finding an optimal life. So we're going to show you a little bit behind the scenes of what the Power Clinic can offer you. Let's take a look at that right now.
Welcome to Power Clinic. I'm Robin Carruthers, the Clinic Director. The Power Clinic is a student clinic at the South Pacific College of Natural Medicine. We've got two main functions here. One is to give our students a really good educational experience. They're the ones who staff the clinic, and they are supervised by experienced practitioners, naturopaths and medical herbalists. Our other role, which is more important, is to provide the community with affordable natural health care. So we have free visits for under 6-year-old children and for people over 65, and our other adult normal fees are heavily subsidised. We see a whole range of people here at Power Clinic, people who've got just minor health complaints, who want to look at a wellness plan, right through to people who are on a range of medications and have quite serious health conditions. A lot of people think with natural health care that if you're taking medications, you can't go to a naturopath. but in fact we're very careful to take that into account and to work around it and support people while they are taking medications that they need to take. So if this sounds like it might be of interest to you, please give us a call and we'll look forward to seeing you and to helping you on your health journey.
Well, it is a big conversation tonight, and if you have just joined us, welcome to the YourFixTV studio for Health Bites tonight, giving you bite-sized morsels of health information to help you find your way back to an optimal life. Now, tonight we are talking about a topic very close to my heart and close to the hearts of many people here in New Zealand, with more than 250,000 people living with diabetes and the effects. So it's not just that person with diabetes, it's their families, it's their communities, all part of that journey. We're here to spread a little bit of light and talk right now into the topic of treatment. And there are some options out there. And first of all, we're going to talk with you, Lynette Hill from My Remedy. You are a medical herbalist and a natural medicine practitioner, registered naturopath. That's the one. That's the way to do it. So, Lynette, treatment options for type 1. Let's talk about that first of all. So,
it's the medical option. You need insulin. There's no other choice. And it's really important that you do that. We, as naturopaths, we will work with herbs that also assist the body with energy spikes, so that and also sometimes with things like specific digestive enzymes, so that you're getting good energy from all of your nutrition.
Right.
So we look at your lifestyle very, very closely and go, what can we do to keep this as stable as possible, so that you're not all over the place with insulin, and so that you're not going, hey, let's just eat this rubbish and have more insulin. That's not the answer to type 1.
Okay, so Steve, from your expertise, so Steve is the CEO of Diabetes New Zealand, if you've just joined the stream. Steve, in your experience with 3 years as the CEO there, what are you noticing the best way to support people with type 1?
I think the best one is looking out there to the pharmaceutical companies, the new types of insulin. They're getting better every time. But the biggest thing with us is the devices, the pumps, the continuous glucose meters. That is probably one of the biggest things that we can support people in New Zealand, particularly living with type 1. And the other one is, until there is a cure, and whenever that happens, is how do we give them the tools that they can live as well as they can, that they can have hope still, but they can still do some cool things that will help them in their journey.
Right. And a great, oh wow, this is amazing, a couple of comments coming through. Steve Broomhead said, love you guys, wish you ran for government. I love that, a great comment there. And there's apparently charity events going on to help support what you guys are doing at the moment as well. You'll see that in the news feed. Raja Chetan has just messaged in from India. Hello to you, Raja. Do you suggest flour as an example, because we're talking about, diet as well? Flours made from flax seeds and sesame seeds and chickpeas. Are they higher in compliant for people who can't tolerate higher sugars, as an example?
Well, they're not simple. So the body's got more to do with them. They're not going to be converted to sugars straight away, which are not, they're going to just be another thing for the body to deal with. So it's that low GI food that is really highly nutritious, got other things in it. Flour is just like this white stuff, and it's got really very little left in it. So just actually eating real food, it's a much better option than eating a piece of bread with some butter and jam on it. It's not rocket science, is it?
It's about making better choices. So let's talk into type 2 now. What do you think? Obviously it's partially preventable, you would say.
Yes, to a point. As we get older, our body does tend to, a better word, deteriorate. So as we do. But there's a lot of things we can do to either prevent or delay the onset of. So
if somebody's already diagnosed with type 2, so they might even be on the treatment, so they're treated with insulin like type 1?
Some are, and some are in a lot of oral medication, and still diet and exercise. There's a gamut of all of them.
Right.
And they can, if they do make some fundamental changes, they can slowly change a few bits and pieces.
I was going to say, following on from that, so if somebody's been diagnosed and they're on medication, can they turn the wheels back? Can they find their way back?
Not all the way back,
health?
but they can get some resolve, yes.
So somebody, for example, like Simon Gold, who has a documentary out about sugar, he was pre-diabetic, and he has pretty much transformed his diet, lost a whole lot of weight, and he is more on the safer part of the spectrum of wellness.
Certainly, Simon was on a lot of medication, and he says that. And he came back, and I think he about halved the amount of medication he was requiring. So you've got to, like you said, understand the disease state, but also a lot of people, you know, like you say, there's Dr. Google.
Yeah.
So what we've tried to do in Diabetes New Zealand is to make what we call a take control toolkit. A series of 40 simple things that can help you live your life better as a type 2 diabetic, with some videos. We've turned it into an app. It's available on our website. People should go use it. It's simple stuff. It's not complex. It's just a bit of a buddy system to help you.
Excellent. So the app they can download from the App Store, Apple iStore, or Google Play?
Yes.
Excellent. So we're going to have a look at the website again for Diabetes New Zealand so that you can head there. And on there, there's some great resources available. There's some wonderful information to help you check out those signs and symptoms and see if somebody you might know or yourself may be affected by this condition, which sadly the numbers are rising in New Zealand, but it is good to know, good to get a diabetes diagnosis. And remember to see a healthcare professional. So make sure you head to that website to find out more. Well, it is time for us to head away shortly. Become a diabetes detective. You can do the work right now, and you can find out what's going on with your own health, because as it says there on the bottom left, undiagnosed diabetes is life-threatening. So take control of your health right now. Do something good for you and for the people you love in your family. Because even if you're diagnosed, it's not just something that affects you, it affects everyone around you. So this has been a very, very good discussion tonight, and I thank you both for being here. Any final thoughts, Lynette, before we finish up tonight?
Yeah, as always, I always believe there is something that you can do. So no matter where you're at, if you're medicated or not, there's always something you can do. Try and talk to someone who knows rather than spend all your time trying to work it out yourself. You'll get there much faster and much cheaper as a rule. Next week we are actually going to have some more dietary advice of actually hands-on, what can you do, what, you know, where's the sugar in this, basically, which I think is really important. And we'll have a little bit more of a discussion about taking care of ourselves, whatever stage we're at with the diabetes journey, and hopefully preventing you even going
Fantastic.
that way.
Okay, Steve, final thoughts from you tonight?
I think first and foremost, as type 2 is the biggest issue we have, is know your risk and act on it.
Yes.
The second part is get a hold of your take control toolkit so you know how to help yourself and get in touch with good key health professionals.
Excellent.
And the final piece, the third piece, is that there is a difference between type 1 and type 2.
Yes.
Understand it, learn to appreciate both different types of diabetes, and the third one, gestational diabetes, but particularly those two, understand it. And finally, if you're between 4 and 10, you're newly diagnosed, write to us and get a GERI.
Yeah, that's so cool. What a great educational tool. Now, final comments coming through. Miranda Sophie, well done, guys. Thanks for spreading the good words. Thank you for being part of the discussion, Miranda.
Thanks,
great
Miranda.
to have you on board. Ross Twilton just said, me again, a way I believe the government should support is teacher aides for preschool. Unfortunately, at the moment, this isn't available, but available at school, from my understanding. My son is 4 and his teachers are amazing, but a teacher aide should be there when they are so little. Thoughts on that, Steve?
Assuming the child's type 1.
Yep.
It's very interesting. It's quite split. Some people don't want their child to have any. They just want to be as normal as they possibly can.
Right.
And there's other people want everything, aids, a lot of other things. So we've looked at that. It's very split on families.
Right.
I suppose that's something that you could actually talk to the local preschool and say, you know, what's your stance? How much support is there? Who knows how much? And if you've got people going, duh, we don't know, or we're really frightened of blood and we faint when we see it, then you might need to consider another place.
A lot of parents, if particularly in primary school, you tend to have the one teacher.
Yes.
And the person that usually does with the first aid stuff tends to be, in the office. Just go in there and say, this is life about type 1. Beyond type 1 have some amazing support for schools and for jobs and for everything.
Awesome.
So there's a lot of good stuff out there, in which we have. Just take that forward step. Talk to the teacher.
Be proactive, talk to the teachers and get that conversation happening. So thanks, Ross, for sending that information through. Great to have you again as part of the conversation. Steve Broomhead, how could I work with diabetes, Steve, being a type 1? As in, what do you mean by that? How could you work with diabetes? Can you give us some more details there, Steve? And we've got another comment coming through, so we'll come back to that one.
If Steve maybe would like to send some questions in, and we can maybe respond to that through the week through Health Bites, or would be really good. And I imagine what he's saying is, I've got it, what else can I do to help myself?
Excellent.
And that's something that we can
And
help
for
him with.
that, we actually have a Facebook group called Health Bites. So and on your Facebook page, in the search engine, if you just type Health Bites, you can apply to be a member of the group, completely free. There are health practitioners and experts in that group. Shoot a question into there. And same goes for you if you are watching the show and you don't feel comfortable sharing a little bit about your life or your own questions into the newsfeed. Join that group. It's secure. There are over 200 and something people in the group, and everybody has a really valuable part to play in that conversation. Jess Cree just said, thanks to you all, the panel was outstanding. Thank you, Jess. I love the push on understanding the difference between type 1 and type 2. Lynette, you look fabulous, which is always nice. I will pop in and see you again soon. So that's fantastic. So Steve's question, how could I work with diabetes, being a type 1, job-wise? What do you want to do, Steve? Get in touch. That would be the first thing I would say.
Give me a call.
Yeah, get in touch with Diabetes New Zealand. That's what we love to hear.
Fantastic. Thanks for clarifying that. I won't put you on a diet.
And that's what the show's all about. Well, it is time for us to head away. Remember, you can join the Health Bites Facebook group. We love you being part of that. It's an open discussion where if you've got a health concern, or you want to know a little bit more, you can talk directly to the experts. That's what the group's about. And as always, a big thank you to the South Pacific College of Natural Medicine for coming on board and being the chief sponsor of our show. We love having you guys with us. And remember too, if you are looking for a health practitioners down the natural medicine line, talk to the people at the Power Clinic. They have incredible community rates, or come and see one of Lynette's amazing practitioners at My Remedy. Details there for you on the screen, and you can Google them. That's on the allowable Google list. But as always, thank you for watching. You can be part of the show. Send us your questions every week. We've got another session next week on diabetes. And we also want to know what you want to see. So do send in your questions throughout the week, depending on which Facebook page you're watching from. Well, time to head away. Lynette, as always, a pleasure having you on board tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure. Lovely to have you too.
Yes, Steve, thank you so much for being part of the show. It's a wonderful conversation to really get that awareness out there. And please, share this show on whatever feed you're watching on tonight. Please share it with your friends and family, because we're here to help everybody find their way to an optimal, healthy, happy life. Time to head away. No mai, haere mai, or as I should say, ka kitea no inohora. I'm Monique Bradley for YourFixTV, and we'll see you next Monday here at 7 p.m.